All right, guys, so now we're going to get into the navbar of Materialize. Now, one thing you may notice that's different about this file is where it says start here, it's actually under the container. And the reason I did that is because most navbars are going to go all the way across the page. You're not going to be restricted inside of the container. So that's what I wanted to do. So I put all the navbars underneath the container so they go all the way across. So first we're going to look at just a standard navigation menu. So just having the nav tag gives us all of this. So it gives us this pinkish background and padding and all that. In fact, if we look at the CSS, if I hover over the nav and we go down, you'll see it automatically has a height of 64 pixels. It has this background color here, width of 100%, color of white. So just the nav tag has quite a bit of style with Materialize. Now to turn it into an actual navbar, what we'll do is go to this first div right here, and we're going to add a class of nav-wrapper. All right, and then we're going to go to the next div, and what I like to do is put a container class inside of the nav wrapper. Now you don't have to do this, but if you don't, your navbar is it's gonna be stuck up against the side like this, how this logo is, and it's going to stretch no matter how far you go. So I like to put a container within it. So if I save that, now you can see that that's pushed in. All right. So let's see. For the logo, the A tag that has the logo in it, we're going to give that a class. And that's going to be brand dash logo. Okay, so once I do that, notice that you can see our links. Okay, now these will change based on, well, actually I guess it's not going to change based on the screen size just yet. But what we can do is we can add to our UL, which is going to have an ID of nav-mobile, and then we can add a class here, and we're going to say right, and that'll move all of our links to the right. And then let's do hide on small and down. Now what this means is that these links are going to be hidden if the size of the browser or the device is on the small size or lower. So if I go ahead and save this, it's not quite on small yet, but if I make this smaller, you'll notice that they disappear. Okay, and that's so it doesn't run into the logo. By default, the logo is going to be centered when it's on a smaller screen. When I go back up, you'll see that it's now on the left. Okay, so when I get around tablet size or maybe a little bigger, maybe like laptop size, the logo automatically goes to the middle. And then when we get really small, the menu items disappear. Okay, so our solution to this for mobile devices would be to add a button that we could click that would open up a side menu with the links. Okay, so that's what we're going to do next. We're going to go down to our responsive side menu, or I should say responsive navbar with side menu. So let's go ahead and add. I'm actually going to change the color as well. You can change the color of absolutely anything. So the navbar, we'll say we want it to be blue, and let's add darken -4. Okay, and that gives us a blue navbar. Also going to give it a container. And let's add to this div right here, we want nav wrapper. And for the logo, let's add class brand -logo. Okay, so that moves it to the middle. And let's see. This A tag here is basically going to be like our hamburger menu. It's going to be the icon we click that opens up the sidebar. So we need to add a couple things to this. One is a class. So we're going to say class equals, and we're going to set this to the button dash collapse class. Now, in addition to a class, we need an attribute called data-activates. Okay, because we're activating the mobile menu. So I'm going to call this mobile-nav. And you can call this whatever you want. You just have to make sure that your UL that you put down here has that ID. All right, but before we get to that, let's first add the icon we want. So this will be class material icons. Okay, it's always material icons no matter what. The icon you want goes in here, which in this case will be menu. All right, so that looks a little weird. We have the icon, but all of the links are showing. So to fix that, we want to go to this UL here, and we want to add our class. First, we want to say right, and then we want to say hide on, and this time I'm going to do medium screens, on medium screens and down, and save. And now that right menu is hidden. Okay. Now this, let's see. We're going to ignore the drop down right now. That's actually part of the UL that's hidden. What you're seeing here, the home, about, and contact, is this UL. Now this UL is what's going to open on the sidebar when we click this button. Okay, but we don't want it to show here. So what we do is add a class of side-nav, and then we want to give it an ID that matches whatever this is, the data activates. In this case, it's mobile nav. So we want to go down here, and we want to make sure that that ID is mobile nav. Now, if I save, you'll see it disappears, okay, which is what we want. Now, if I click on the button here, nothing happens. That's because in order to use the side nav, you need to actually initialize it in jQuery, in JavaScript. So we're going to go way down to the bottom, and we're going to initialize this sidebar by using jQuery and saying .button collapse. Okay, button collapse is the class of this button right here. And then we're going to just say .side nav. Okay, we're going to call that function. And now if I save and I go and I click, there we go. It opens up a sidebar with whatever is in this UL right here. Okay, so you could have a different set of links here. Ignore this thing, ignore this stuff for now. But you could have a different set of links here. In fact, we do, than your sidebar, or you could have them the exact same, so it just works like a responsive menu. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So now what I'm going to do is just make sure that all these links are showing, and we're going to now work on, let's see, let's do the drop down. Okay, so we have a list item here under the home, about, contact. Then we have this list item, and I want this to be a drop down. And what we need to do is, let's see, we need to add an ID, or not an ID. We just need to add a class. We need to add a class of drop down button. Dash button. All right, and then let's just put in, I'm sorry, this should be on the A tag, not the LI. All right, so drop down button, and then it's going to also have a data activates. And we want to set this to, we could set this to anything. I'm going to set it to my dash drop down. And let's see, we're going to have an icon in here. So this icon is going to be like a down arrow that you would have next to a drop down. So it's going to be arrow dash drop dash down. So we'll save that. And let's see, that's weird. Oh, you know what? We need to put a right class with the material icons. There we go. So now we have the arrow there. Now it's not going to work. What it's doing is it's looking for an ID of my drop down. It's looking for a UL with that ID. Now that UL we can put anywhere. We could put it here, or we could just go outside of the navbar itself and put it down, which I actually have it right here. So I'm just going to give this an ID now of my dash drop down. Okay, it should match whatever that data activates was, and then it also has a class of drop down dash content. Okay, and that's it. Let's save and let's go over here, and now when I hover over it, there we go. You can see this UL is showing. So this UL can be completely separate from the navbar. We could put this at the bottom of the file. It doesn't matter as long as this ID, my drop down, matches whatever we put in the data activates. Okay. So just a couple other things I want to mention. A button link. So this login, let's say we want that to be a button. All we would have to do is go and add to our A tag here, class equals btn. We could give it a waves effect. We'll say waves dash light and save, and there we go. Now we have a button in our navbar. Okay, we can also have an icon link. This P actually wasn't supposed to be here, but that's all right. It's just part of person, which is the icon I want to use. And we'll say class material icons and save, and there we go. So now we have a little icon inside the navbar. So a couple other things. If we wanted to make a link active, I'm just going to make this a little smaller. Let's say we want this about link to be active. I'm going to go up to the top menu here and just add on to the li tag the class of active and save, and now you can see that's active. Now when we make this bigger, the logo automatically goes to the left, but if we wanted that to stay in the center, we could also add to the brand logo class a center class and save, and now you'll see it'll stay in the center no matter what. So just a couple extra things that you can do with your navbars. So what about a fixed navbar, meaning that if we scroll down, we want it to basically just stay in place. So what I'm going to do is take this standard menu that we have. I'm going to just grab that whole thing and go down to where it says fixed navbar and just replace these two. Actually, I'm going to put it inside the div, sorry. And all we have to do to make it fixed is take this div, wrap it around the navbar, and give it a class of navbar-fixed and save. Let's actually make this a different color. We'll make this one black and save, and it's fixed. So you can see I can scroll. Actually, to make this a little more understandable, let's make this margin top 1000, and now if I scroll, you'll see it's just going to stay in place. And usually you'd have this at the top, so it would stay right at the top. Alright, so the last thing I want to show you is a search bar, which is kind of like just a navbar search box kind of thing. So I'm just going to type this out quickly. We'll have a nav with the class of, let's make it green, and let's put in a class of nav wrapper, and then we'll put in a form. We don't need an action. It's not going to actually do anything. It's just a form. Then we're going to have a class of input field, and we're going to get into this later on when we get to forms. And we'll have an input. We'll give it an ID of search, and let's give it a type of search, and we'll just say it's required. Required. And then we're going to put in a label, and I'm going to give this a class of label-icon, and we'll say for search. And let's see, inside the label, I'm actually going to put an I tag, put our material icons class, And let's make this a search icon. And then I also want a close icon after the label. So we'll say material icons and close. All right, let's save that. Now we have a little search icon. If I click it, and it becomes a search box. If I click close, it goes back. So pretty cool. All right, so that's going to be it for navbars, guys. In the next video, we're going to start to look at collections, which are kind of like fancy list groups or fancy list items.